Hey everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Rewriting Crash Course. Now, if you're interested in working with me directly to rewrite your screenplay, there is a link below where you can book a call and talk to me about working together one-on-one to fix your script. You can also take a look at the other people that have gone through and have worked with me on their screenplay and have gotten great results. So if you're interested in that, definitely take a look below. Other than that, let's go ahead and get into the video today. So what I'm going to be talking about today is fixing your genre, right? Talking about genre is now we are going into sort of a different view of storytelling. So up to this point, I have been talking about, right, story, right? This sort of general concept. So what I have talked about can apply to novels, short stories, graphic novels, comic books, screenplays, all of this sort of stuff. So ideas like philosophical conflict, ideas like characters, structure, all of these, the basic fundamentals of how you actually fix all of those different kinds of stories, they are the same, right? What we're talking about now is a little bit more focused in regards to the medium that you're working with. Specifically, we are working with screenplays. Now, if obviously you're not working in scripts, this will still apply to you, but it's going to be a little bit different. So you're just going to have a knowledge of your genres and your medium and that sort of thing. So first off, right, coming into trying to fix your genre, trying to fix your thriller or your comedy or your action adventure, whatever, right? First and foremost, the number one problem you're going to have. So we're going to be talking about script over here now, right? So we're talking about films. We're not just talking about story anymore. So when you're actually talking about this sort of thing, right? So now we're looking at in this world of, action adventure, comedy, right? These are, thriller. These are general genres in screenplays. And of course, some of these obviously transfer over to certain mediums, but these are genres in screenwriting, right? So now we're kind of moving away from fundamental story and moving into how screenplays actually work in context, right? So when you're actually trying to fix your genre, this is going to be a lot more about understanding screenplays, films, and just the world that you are currently living in and the context of the story that you're making rather than any sort of fundamental story concepts, okay? And so there's a difference, right? Because your story, right, your fundamental story can be totally working, but also be something that we have seen a million times in other films and other screenplays, right? So when we're talking about the artistry of screenwriting, the artistry of storytelling, a lot of times this is going to come in kind of two big ways, right? So first off, it's going to be about the philosophical conflict that you are giving to the audience, right? What is that philosophical conflict? What is the context that you are bringing this idea to the audience? Is this an idea, a philosophical idea or a moral ethical dilemma that we've seen a million times before in other screenplays? Or is this something new, like an actual observation you're making of the world in your particular context and you're bringing to people, right? That is kind of the first big artistic element of your script. The other element is going to be your understanding of the world that your screenplay exists within, right? So your screenplay is going to exist in some sort of genre, right? So drama, action, thriller, comedy, horror, this sort of thing, right? And so what happens is a lot of times you get into this place where, maybe your story is working, which first off, most people's stories are not working, right? And it takes, honestly, a long time to actually get your story working, to uncomplicate it, to solve all of the problems in your philosophical conflict, your characters, your structure. You could literally spend your entire life trying to fix this alone. But then there's the other element of the artistry here. And so you can have a story that's working and still hit beats that we've seen again and again and again, right? So this is going to come down to another element of screenwriting that you should focus on. And that is becoming an expert in the particular genre that you are writing in, right? So, right, this is, you need to study your genre, right? Also, this is, you can, of course, jump genres and tell stories in all different kinds of genres. And, we can look at certain writer directors who have definitely done this and made fantastic films in all sorts of different genres. However, when you are starting out, you need to be able to master, right, one genre at least, right? Because if you can't master a genre, then you don't actually know how to change things in your particular story to make it so that it's something that we haven't seen before, right? So just because you have, just because you are writing a thriller, let's say, and you have some sort of nice new idea, right? Just because you have some idea that pops in your head while you're in the shower, it doesn't mean that it's not something we haven't seen a million times before, right? And the reality is, most of your first ideas, like your first thoughts, are going to be generic ideas that were other writers' first thoughts, and their film got made, and we've seen it before, right? So you have to understand, right, that now we are existing in a world where, there's been 100 years. There's been 100 years of films that have been made, right? In the way that you are trying to make them. And so this means that there's a lot of things that have been done, and you have to understand the context of the particular genre you're in, right? So if you are writing thrillers or writing a thriller, right, a great thing to be doing is just watching thrillers and seeing how they are operating, right? And while you're doing this, you're also saying, okay, what in my thriller is something that I have seen before in the thrillers that I'm watching now, right? And then how do I change my story to surprise the audience, right? To shake things up, to actually give something fresh and new. And a lot of this is coming back into concept, right? So this is the other sort of concept and genre are closely tied together. So, sci-fi, for example, is a genre, as well as your particular sci-fi concept is going to exist within that genre, right? So these are kind of tightly knit together. Now, you'll notice that I'm talking about genre and concept pretty late in this, right? So I've already covered philosophical conflict. I've already covered the mindset and the awareness that you need to have when you're actually coming into the writing process. I've already talked about characters and structure. This is later on, right? Because if you can't actually just at the fundamental level understand why you're telling a story at all, it's not going to matter about, what your genre or your concept is, right? And I think what happened is we see people like, Nolan, right? Christopher Nolan, I'm sure, is a writer-director that many of you are super fond of, and I love a lot of his films. However, Nolan, one of the things that Nolan unintentionally created was an entire generation of screenwriters that are only focused on these two things right here, right? All people focus on is the genre and the concept, and mainly just the concept. Everybody's trying to Nolanify their story. They're trying to make some sort of sci-fi time story and assume that if they make the most original sci-fi time story, that these other ideas like philosophical conflict, characters, and structure can go out the window because we'll have some sort of crazy concept. And sometimes this works, right? And you can make a conceptual story that doesn't have any sort of strong philosophical conflict, but it doesn't necessarily work all of the time. And we can actually, have a whole conversation about some of the drawbacks of some of Nolan's films are that lack of character depth, right? That sometimes his characters serve the concept more so than anything else. And that comes with its pros and its cons. Not necessarily that it's wrong, but it comes with its pros and with its cons, right? So if you were writing a sci-fi time story, for example, right, then it makes a lot of sense that you should be studying your genre, mastering your genre, having an understanding of what sort of sci-fi time films have you seen before. And this is helpful for two reasons. Obviously, one, it shows you what has been done a million times, right? And it also shows you potential interesting ideas that you can take and change and add to your story, right? Because as you are building your story, what you're doing is you're studying the world around you, and you're taking everything up and then adding things together to create something that's quote unquote original, right? So your mind is just an amalgamation of everything that's come into you about storytelling. Some of those ideas you are going to make yours by changing them, transferring them, adding one idea to another and making a new story. And so this is why you have to understand your genre. And this is actually something that I really got into with Dominic Morgan, a script fella. You guys may know who he is. He also has a YouTube channel called Script Fella here if you haven't heard of him. But this is a big thing that he's talked to me about a lot. And I think he's totally correct, because you need to have a knowledge of film, right? A knowledge of the film history that's come before you, specifically within the type of story that you're trying to tell. So if you're writing a thriller right now, find 20 thrillers from the last decade or two and just watch them throughout your process of writing your first draft, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's going to give you ideas. It's going to allow you to keep these things top of mind. And it's very easy to end up with something boring or some sort of lame ending to your story because you didn't really put that much thought into it and went with your first thought. And so ultimately, this is about kind of becoming an expert in the particular genre you're writing in, and understanding when you need to fit within the genre and when you need to do something unique, right? Because genre is not just about figuring out what you need to know to break the rules. The other side of this is that there are genre rules, right? So thrillers, for example, or comedies or action adventure, all of these stories are coming in with certain audience expectation, right? So there are certain things that you are going to be doing no matter what, right? If you are deciding that you're writing a thriller, there are certain things that are going to be happening. You're probably going to have some tension. You're probably going to have some sort of high intensity physical climax in some way. It's going to be a story that's likely moving very quickly, right? To scene to scene to scene. It's very much of a page turner type screenplay. If you're writing a comedy, there's probably going to be some jokes, right? So certain things, this sounds simple, but certain things are audience expectation. They are coming in expecting certain things, and you must give that to them. Then the other element is subversion of rules, right? And so this is what everybody loves to talk about, subversion of rules. We love when we break the rules, that's everyone's favorite thing. And yay, we actually get to do it in the correct way now. This subversion is just going to be, once you have that knowledge of the genre that you're in, how do you take things that the audience expect to happen and twist it and make something new and something interesting, right? And so then the question becomes, okay, well, how do you do this, right? How do you actually create something new and interesting? And at some point, this is just the simple answer here is just be creative, right? So at some point, I, in these videos and other people that you have listened to and all of these sorts of things, I can give you a lot of guidelines. I can give you a lot of ways to solve problems, right? Ultimately, this does only take you so far, right? For you to truly write something absolutely great, it absolutely requires you to have an understanding of all of these core fundamentals, and 99% of writers do not. But then the other element of this is that you have to be an artist, right? Screenwriting is art, storytelling is art, and at some point you are going to have to find your own individuality and be the captain of your own ship, in the sense of you are the one that is going to have to be creative, find new ways to bring ideas to your audience, and be somebody that is generating ideas, generating creative thoughts. And that, this is the fun part, right? This is what we all want to be doing. Ultimately, we don't want, we usually start writing not being like, give me all of the rules and the problems I'm going to have to solve, right? That's not how we're looking at this. What we're looking at is we love the idea of being creative and creating our own worlds and bringing a message to people, right? And so now, you actually get to do that, right? You get to do that when you're in your philosophical conflict, when you're seeing ideas in the world and trying to find a way to bring that to people. You get to do that by how you construct your characters. You get to do that by subverting the genre rules of the particular genre that you are telling your story in. And so, I'm not going to give you like, okay, well, here's the 10 ways you can be, a true original thinker. It's like, also, that's sort of what my podcast was kind of for, ideally, is that to send you on your own rabbit holes, right? To find interesting ideas, just find your own individuality, right? Pave your own path. And when you pave your own path, you're able to come back and you're able to say, okay, now I have original ideas, new thoughts. I've been paving my own way in a way that I can come to an audience with something truly different, something they actually haven't seen before, something they haven't thought about before. And that is freaking awesome. And so, this as well, right? Subversion of your story and being creative here, this is one of the best places in your story to actually break the rules, right? Because this allows your story to be unique and unexpected without breaking core story principles that's going to make your story unengaging and boring. So ultimately, right, you have to understand your genre. And the way that you understand your genre is by watching films similar to what you're trying to make, right? Because no matter how unique you think your story is, there are films that are like your story. And that's good, right? That is helpful because we can learn from the artists and the thinkers that have come behind us and make something new and make something interesting. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one to rewrite and fix your screenplay, there is a link below where we can book a call and talk about working together, as well as you can listen to other reviews of previous clients. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time.